Hey guys, welcome back to the Little Craft House. Today I wanted to dedicate this whole tutorial to my most favoriteest tool, which is an extruder. So I have got so many ideas that I love to do with this extruder, so many different patterns and techniques that I thought I would compile them all and make a tutorial all about using it and all the designs that you can come up with. Okay, so if you haven't got an extruder or haven't used an extruder before, I can confidently say you are missing out. This is my most favorite tool. There are so many different things that you can do with it. So I thought we would start by just talking about what it is and what it does. So this is my brand new one. I've used it a couple of times. An extruder will come with a bunch of discs. So I think I've got a few different sets in here actually. So they don't always come with all of these, but different discs that have different holes in them, so that when you put your polymer clay into your extruder and wind it out, it comes out the end in the shape of whatever that disc is. So basic how to use. Firstly, I'm going to wind the extruder back like so. I would then undo the cap. And then we're going to get our piece of clay. Now, it's quite important that you have already conditioned your polymer clay, and the softer it is, the better. If you find that it is actually too soft to work with, you can always let it rest afterwards, but definitely the softer it is coming out of the extruder, the easier it is on your hands. Now, I also forgot to mention before where you can get an extruder from, and we have just restocked them in our store. So you can get them either in our store or via our website. I am just going to choose a disc. So we might choose this long rectangular disc. Hold it on top, place the cap back on, all the way on properly so it's nice and tight, and then we are going to wind it down. So it's going to squeeze the polymer clay, and when it gets to the other end, it's just going to extrude it out of that disc. Like so. And now the clay has taken the shape of that disc. So that's a basic of how to use your extruder. Then to clean it out, you wind it back to release that pressure. Cap off, disc off, which you can clean. And then I wind it back up to be able to remove any excess polymer clay there. So generally with my hands, it comes off quite well. If you need to use a tool, you can use a tool to go around, but otherwise just getting a wipe and just cleaning it. And you'll find that because it's got quite good mechanism inside, the inside actually isn't, it has a little rubber seal around that pushing bit, so the inside doesn't get very dirty at all. But if I did need to clean it, I would just get my baby wipe and just clean on the inside like so. So yeah, that's a basic how to use the extruder. So now let's work on a few different designs. This one would have to be my most favorite extruder technique. So what I've done is chosen a few different colors and I've rolled them out. I've conditioned them and then I've rolled them through my pasta machine on the thickest setting. So I'm just going to take this little cutter here. I usually use this for studs and toppers. I'm going to use the red end because the size of that circle fits perfectly in the extruder. So I'm going to cut out a bunch of circles here. Now my clay pieces aren't overly huge because they are just leftover pieces from previous projects. I can cut more if I need, and that piece didn't cut properly, but that is completely fine. We can still use that. So I'll just cut out as many circles as I can get. I'll recondition it, or rather put it back through the pasta machine, and then I can cut some more. Right, so I've got all my circles cut. I did have to add a little bit extra clay, and now we're going to assemble them into a nice long tube that we can put into the extruder. So we're going to just do it as a little pattern. I'm going to go white, pink, red, fuchsia. Okay, I'm going to pop that now. Well, firstly, we've got to wind our extruder handle back. Get it all the way back to as far as it will go. And I've already got the cap off, so I can just poke that in. Back a bit further. Push it in. And then we're going to pick the disc for the top. So to do an extruder cane, I like to use the square disc. If I can find it. Where are you? Ah. I might have to use the, oh, there he is, hiding. All right, so we're going to use the square disc. So we're going to put that disc just on the top there. And then with the cap, we're going to screw that back on, all the way on, so that it's tightly on. And then we're going to start winding up the extruder. So you'll feel a bit of tension. And as you feel the tension, that's when it starts to sort of push through. Now, let me just move all these things. Wipe the disc there. Winding, and out it comes. Now, it doesn't look very impressive at the moment, but I will reveal the magic to you soon. All right, once we get it to the end, we're just going to get the knife and cut it off, and then just wind that back to release the pressure. And I will clean out the extruder afterwards, but we just need to release the pressure so that it's not putting strain on the internal mechanisms. Right. So we'll start by cutting this in half. And this is the look we're going for. So each of those colors is all squeezed in together, and we get these beautiful rings of color without it being too blended. So from the outside, it looks pretty plain, but on the inside, it's gorgeous. So now we're going to go in half again. Look at those. So now what we're going to do is arrange them into 2 lines of 4 so that they're a little bit different. And then to get them to all hold together, we're going to give them a little squeeze. I'm going to use a little acrylic plate as well, and that's going to push it together and squeeze out any air gaps. And then from here I can slice it, or I could slice it in half and put it on top and then slice, but I think I'll just do it from here. Looks so good. So I'm just going to slice up a whole bunch of these and then we can tile them. Okay, so as I tile these out, what I'm going to do is take one piece from the front and one piece from the back, excluding that last piece that I cut because we might need that to fill up some gaps afterwards. But the patterns will be different from what's at the front to at the back, so we want to mix it up a little bit. So how good does that look? I'm now going to get a bit of baking paper and just put it over the top because we're going to give it a little roll. I don't want each one of those little cubes to get stuck to my roller and lift up. So by putting the baking paper down, it's going to keep it all nice and together. And I'm just going to really gently roll it because I don't want those shapes to distort and squish out. So I might actually just give it more of a rub. Like so. There we go. So I told you this was one of my favorites. This is why it looks absolutely beautiful. It's like it's a really hard technique, but it's actually super easy. So I also wanted to share with you this one, which is the same technique, obviously, but different colorway. And then also this one here. This one I did a little bit differently. I didn't cut the circles. I just pushed the clay into the extruder without it being all even pieces. And so you find that the coloring and the way it comes out is slightly different. So the next few ideas are going to move through super fast. They've all come from the reels that I've created for my other social media platforms. So here is my easiest way to create a stripe, literally just alternating your strands of polymer clay. And of course you can do them any thickness that you like to create a different effect. Then straight into the next one here. This one is more of a checkered pattern, I suppose you call it. Once again, just extruding out the really fine strands of polymer clay, and then I'm just using some normal everyday notebook paper that's got the lines on it, placing that down and using that as my guide for keeping my stripes straight. So I'm going to go down and do stripes in one direction, Getting them all in position, then using some baking paper to position them permanently, then flipping my clay and going back in the other direction to create that crossed pattern. Lined paper comes in really handy for this, such an awesome easy guide that I've got laying around the house anyway. And then just going to finish this one off with some earrings. Okay, next idea. This one I've used quite a bit, especially at Christmas time. It's making my own sprinkles. So anything like doing donuts or Christmas cookies, cupcakes, any of those sorts of little projects, I make my own sprinkles by partially baking the extruded strands, then chopping them all up into little pieces and then finishing off the bake. So this way I can color coordinate, I can choose what colors I like, and I can choose the shapes and the size of the pieces. Next up, I am combining some polymer clay with a piece of foil on top, and then I've got some hot pink clay here, and I'm just going to extrude that out in a nice long strand. Oh, lots of strands. And then I'm just going to maneuver around, placing it onto that foil. Don't need any sort of adhesive. The clay just sticks directly onto that foil because the clay is a little bit sticky and the foil's nice and shiny, so it'll just stick directly on there. And then this just creates a nice little interesting pattern on the clay. Then just to secure it down fully, again just patting down with the baking paper, and then I'm using sandpaper to put an all over texture onto the piece. Last up, I have the knitting pattern technique, but this one's actually making it more of a rattan piece but with green, if that makes sense. So it just starts off the same as you would do some little faux knitting by twisting the strands together and then positioning them on the clay so that they look like they're either knitted or fabric woven of some sort. So yeah, that just creates a really cute little texture on your clay. And so I hope that these ideas have inspired you guys to get yourself an extruder and try out some new techniques. We really only have just scratched the surface today. There are so many different ways that you can use your extruder, from rainbows to hoop earrings, the stripes, different patterns. It really is endless and it is such a valuable tool. So thank you for joining me today, guys. If there is anything that you would like me to go more in depth with and do a full tutorial just on that project, please let me know. I would love to go more in depth and teach you guys and show you guys how to do it. In the meantime, I would love for you to hit the subscribe button, keep up to date with all my tutorials as well as over in the short section. And if you head over to Instagram and Facebook, you'll also find other mini tutorials as well as a bunch of inspo over there. Thank you for joining me today. Hope you have enjoyed it, and I shall see you again next week with another tutorial. See you then. Bye.